Welcome, everyone, to Alliance for a Viable Future podcast. This is a introduction to a webinar that I gave at Simon's Rock College, high school college program in the Berkshires as part of an international climate conference. And I wanted to just give a short introduction just to let you know so that we're not just jumping right in. Hey, what is this all about? And then also to highlight a particularly compelling question that came up at the end of the workshop from one of the participants. She asked me about the mission of Alliance for a Viable Future to train over 5,000 climate leaders in businesses and organizations by 2030 or around that time. And she was wondering, what if it's not enough? What if the changes that need to take place in the urgent timeline that is before us, what if the work that you do doesn't generate the change that is necessary? And it was a very powerful question. And underneath it, I asked her, I said, really what I hear in that question is a question about hope. Do I actually have hope that anything that I do or that anyone does is really going to make a difference? And it's very important, that question, psychologically, and then how that translates into our capacity to take action. So I want to share 3 or 4 different, looking at my whiteboard here, 3 or 4 different points to that question, really about hope. Do I hope, do I have hope that what I do or what others do, what we do collectively is going to be enough? Is it going to make a difference? The first thing, a few weeks ago, the book by Michael Mead entitled Why the World Doesn't End, it jumped off the shelf at me. He wrote it a few years ago, and he talks about mythologically why the world doesn't end. And he says that when a story ends, the archetype of a story, the architecture of a story is such that it begins again. A story ends and then it begins again. When you listen to a story and it says the end, then you can turn to the beginning of the page. My son, we read stories over and over. We get to the end and he flips it back and he starts from the beginning. We do that 3 or 4 times. It's the same story. Why can he do that? And even as adults, we can do that. We go back to certain stories year after year, and they feed us, they nourish us. And he says, very simply, I'm distilling this whole book that he wrote down into one crystallized point. He says, if the world was going to end, that would mean every story that is being played out, every single story on the earth right now, would need to end at the same time. And that would create this, we don't know, an unknown vacuum, an ending, an ultimate ending, which is what is in the psyche of the apocalypse. But he goes into the teachings of the apocalypse. The roots of that word are Greek, and it truly means the unveiling, the great unveiling. Whatever is hidden, it's being revealed. And that is truly happening right now, that there is a big ending a great ending that is happening right now. And in that great ending, there are many new beginnings that are sprouting up. So to be present to both of those, to both be present with the fact that we need to gracefully and compassionately be aware of and supportive of the composting, the great ending of the systems that aren't working anymore, the cultures, the practices, the habits, individually and collectively, and then to be engaging the regenerative practice of the new beginning. So that's one of the main points that I actually didn't write down, but jumped into my mind here now that I'm talking with you, from Michael Meade, Why the World Doesn't End. There's 3 other points here that are connected to that. The first is the 1% principle. And I read about this in Atomic Habits by James Clear, excuse me. And he says, on a personal level, personal habit level, the principle of 1% is that if we get 1% better at something, if we improve each and every day, an instrument, working out, whatever it is, relationship with your spouse, your partner, your children, your colleagues, if you focus on something, sharing an appreciation with someone every day, if you make that a commitment for a year, you're actually going to get better over the course of the year by 37%. So why is that relevant? Because right now it's 2022 and we're looking at 2030, and there's all of these quote deadlines, and they're true. They need to be taken seriously and sincerely in terms of the climate emergency that we're in. And if we say, okay, let's go, let's do it, let's do everything in our power to address these issues and to reach these goals. And let's say we're going to go 1% better towards those goals every day, and that will accumulate into bigger projects that we're doing, and initiatives and networks, and bigger and more diversified alliances and coalitions that can leverage huge networks of power, truly, and systems of responsibility uh, and commitment to say we're going to make things change in our communities, in our bioregions, in our country, in our world. That ripple effect. If we have that perspective, 1% better. So by 2023, we're going to be looking at a different landscape. By 2024, so on and so forth. That 1% rule. And sure, we can be a critic, we can be a cynic and look at the past. But how useful is that in terms of our engagement? If the children are the most important priority, when they ask us, what did you do during that time? I don't want to be the one that says, well, I was a cynic and I was saying, oh, well, it can't happen. I'm going to be the one that says, I did everything in my power. I threw myself at it. With intelligence, with wisdom, with, presence. But I did everything in my power. And we did it together. So that's important. Then the other piece that's important is something that is said in the Navy SEALs, and in the higher level training in the military, a mentor of mine shared with me, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. So by slowing down and listening deeply, which is what I talk about in this webinar, we're able to connect with powerful, courageous action. And when we do that, when we leverage into what's possible, and we get that clear path forward, then there's an optical illusion that it seemed like we slowed down, but actually we were moving more quickly because we were taking more potent, powerful action. We were getting at the root causes. And number 3, as I was saying, 100% faith and believing in what you're doing is able to move mountains, to play all out, to leave it all on the court. You know, great coaches in sports say that, spiritual teachers say that, uh, and motivational speakers, and so on and so forth. You know, great leaders in every domain. They throw themselves into what they do, 100% faith, 100% commitment. That being said, of course, there's doubts that come in, but those doubts are within an overall growth each and every day of a sense of courage, a sense of faith that I believe that what I'm doing is going to be making a difference for those around me, and most importantly, for a viable future, and for the children and grandchildren and future generations all the way down the line. So I wanted to share those things, and then you can enter into this introduction to climate leadership. Welcome, everyone, to Climate Leadership. My name is Lev Natan. I am the founder and executive director of Alliance for a Viable Future. It's an organization based here in the Berkshires, and I'll tell you more about it. We're just going to get started with a little screen share. So I wanted to just share our focus for today. We're going to start with some context about what is the Alliance for a Viable Future, what's our mission, and how that relates to climate leadership. So you understand who you're talking to or who's talking with you, and then how we can build relationships, really, is how we think about it. And then a vision of what's possible, for you as a climate leader, an emerging or established climate leader. What's next for you in the context of what's happening in the world, or in your community. And then where the rubber hits the road is, what are you going to do about it? As we know, there's so many good ideas, and actually I think there's enough ideas out there right now that we could make things right in the world. But the issue is leadership. The issue is the rubber hitting the road and putting those ideas into practice. So that's the main thing here that I wanted to share. And this slideshow that I want to share with you, it's something I've been working on for quite a while. I'm going to be using it quite a bit, and it's not 100% finished. So I'm going to use the first few slides that are finished. My graphic designer is helping me work with it, and then I'm going to switch over to a more of a draft. So that's where things are, and you got to just be in the flow with it. So thank you for your understanding. So that's my son on the right, Emmett Cole Natan, with his two best friends. And I want us to just take a moment right now to connect to why we're having this workshop, why we're having this conference, climate. And if you want, you can close your eyes. I like to do that myself just to get grounded in the purpose of being here right now. Our time and our energy is so valuable. So it's really important. Why are we doing what we're doing? And for me, it is about my son. It's about his friends. It's about all the children and the grandchildren and the great grandchildren, all the way down into the future. I think about what's it going to be like for him when he's my age in 30 years? What's it going to be like for his friends, for his children, you know? And I want to thank you for being here, because you're here, whether you have children or not, you care about that question. What's it going to be like for them? So I want to say thank you for your care. The problem is that we're not prepared for what's already happening. It's already happening. Climate change is not in the future. It's now, and it's yesterday. It's been going on already. So our children are growing up in a dangerous world right now. And how are we going to make that shift to a viable future? We need to listen deeply. Listening deeply leads to courageous action. There's an old proverb that says, when you hear the roar of the lion, run towards the roar. Climate change is the roar right now. And it's telling us, that old story is telling us we need to confront it directly, not as a war against climate change, but as a relationship that we don't hide from. And that takes courage. It takes courage to do that. I'm going to switch to the old slides now. And we got just 4 of those done, but they're all going to be really nice when they're all done. So it takes courage to listen deeply. Moses sat on a mountain for 40 days. Jesus did the same. Nelson Mandela used his 27 years in prison to listen deeply. And Gandhi took a whole year to listen before building the independence movement. And great leaders understand that they can't do it alone. They need to engage in the practice of deep listening as part of the community in council. The Iroquois Confederacy sat in council and still sits in council. My personal mentor, Jala Jabanheim, taught circle work to Palestinian and Israeli women. Council is an ancient practice that makes the impossible possible. For the last 20 years, I have found guidance from sitting in council, from vision questing in nature, from sweat lodge and Sundance. These indigenous ceremonies have initiated me into a deep commitment to the future of our planet. This book that I wrote last year is the blueprint of our theory of change, of our strategic plan as an organization. And it's the culmination of 20 years of spiritual training and professional work. When I was 15 years old, I first learned about community organizing. And since then, my commitment to individual and collective change has led me to a career as a professional coach and consultant, and motivated me to incubate this organization through a master's in organizational leadership and to continue on with PhD level research. But more than all of the training, there was a personal health crisis that I went through 8 years ago that took me to my knees and showed me the preciousness of life. And that gave me the deep commitment to do everything in my power to make sure that everything is good for the children and for the future generations. So our mission at Alliance for a Viable Future is to be a backbone organization that develops leadership for breakthrough climate solutions and intercultural reconciliation across the Northeast bioregion. So this is a front page article from the day after Indigenous Peoples Day last year. We see ourselves like the mycelial network that connects the roots of trees in the forest. That's what a backbone organization means to us. We put these principles into practice by organizing public events for Indigenous Peoples Day, coordinating the Northeast Climate Leadership Network, and offering nature-based retreats that give leaders an opportunity to slow down and listen deeply so they can take courageous action. Just 2 years ago, we coordinated our first Northeast Regional Indigenous Peoples Day events. Last year, we had over 500 citizens participate. I don't know if you were there yourselves, right on Main Street in Great Barrington. We had 25 sponsors, including for-profits, nonprofits, and foundations. This year, we're partnering with Kripalu and the Mahiwi to bring together a Northeast Indigenous Leaders Council. We're also this year bringing together organizational partners to pilot the Berkshire's Climate Leadership Council, a year-long regional training for business and organizational leaders. In 3 years, we intend to scale the program to the entire Northeast by building a team of 50 facilitators. In 10 years, we project having over 5,000 alumni in our Northeast Climate Leadership Network. At the end of our year-long training, participants will be invited to sit in a sweat lodge, take time alone in nature, and be honored for stepping into a new arena of leadership. That's our land up in Sandusfield, just about 30 minutes from Great Barrington. Our goals for the next 10 years are: number one, for every town and city in the Northeast to organize Indigenous Peoples Day events. Number two, to train 5,000 climate leaders. And number three, to establish partnerships with 2,000 businesses and organizations. And we're confident that we can reach those goals because over the last 4 years, we've raised $50,000 and we've built a successful track record in our community with programs and momentum. So that's what I wanted to share, I think, at this point. Just that amount, that much right now, and then we can kind of return to our focus for today. So thanks for listening to just my introductory context of, who I am, who the Alliance is, and, where we are now, how we're intending to grow. And then really, we want to connect with the vision of what's possible as a you yourself. Oh, this is a I think this is a slide that I wanted to show, actually, going into, let's see here. um, yeah, the vision of what's possible. Let's see, did I put this in there at the end? Wait. Oh, no, I didn't put it. Okay, one sec. 12. Here it is. Excuse me. Okay. All right. This is the moving into, what's the vision? Um, oh, we're doing screen share already. Okay, so here's a slide that's important. Um, Self mastery, team resonance, and alliance cultivation. Really, it's about self, team, and alliance, and that's the basic outline of the climate leadership book. It's really a workbook to engage in. And it starts with that theory of change, of scaling connectivity. We believe that change flows through relationships at the speed of trust. So we need to trust each other if we're going to work together and do real impactful work uh, that makes a real difference. And you can kind of connect to that in your own life. Who do you work with? Who do you ask people? Who do you ask to do something that you need done? Someone that you feel is reliable, someone that you trust. Or if you need some guidance, you go to someone that you trust. And that's how projects grow, through trust. Um, Things are more possible when we trust each other. It's the creativity of, wow, what we could do this, we could do that. Getting onto a whiteboard or brainstorming. It happens in a place where we trust each other. And that's when you feel like, oh, I can take risks in this moment. I can say something I'm not sure. Hey, let's try this out. Let's think about this. So that's where breakthrough climate solutions are going to emerge out of that environment, that relational connection. So the focus, though, is on self, team, and alliance for this year-long climate training. But just in this moment today, you being here and listening, um, beginning with yourself, where am I personally as an emerging and or established climate leader? What's my growing edge is a very important question. Like, you can appreciate all that you've done up until now and all the experience that you have. And then no matter who you are, there's always a growing edge. There's always, for me, I've been doing this kind of work for a while, and still I get nervous. I get scared. What if it's not going to work? That's the growing edge, and it's healthy and it's good. And that means I'm on the right track. So that's my own leadership edge when we focus on self. And then as we dig into that work, we naturally expand to, okay, how can I bring climate leadership to my sphere of influence, which is the teams that I work with, at Simon's Rock. If you're a student, your classes, your teachers, your friends. And as a teacher, it's the same thing. The team is Simon's Rock, and it's a big community. But so there's, ripples in that. Who is your immediate sphere of influence? Who are the people that you talk to, and that if you want to incubate an initiative, who are the first people that you talk to? And then from there, you can talk to more people, and then you can create influence throughout the Simon's Rock community. And then alliance cultivation is like what I was showing before, is how do we create partnerships and build alliances and networks uh, that are focused on uh, what it's going to take. You know, what is it going to take for things to be good for the young, the children and the teenagers and the students in high school and college right now. What are in all fields of endeavor? You know, and there's certain guidelines that, you know, there's thought leadership about what needs to happen in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, by 2050, in the next 30 years. And we can go into that and geek out on that. It's important to do that and to know all that literature. Um, but that happens on the alliance level, you know, and we believe that a bioregional focus is kind of the sweet spot. You know, they used to say, and people probably still do say, you know, think global, act local. And we're finding that bioregional is kind of like the story of Goldilocks. The oatmeal was too cold and it's too hot, but the just right oatmeal is bioregional. We want to sink into the bioregional focus, because local, we're finding with climate isn't a local issue, right? And it's not a, and it's a global issue, but acting on a bioregional scale allows us to leverage networks. And it also, the theory is in the coming years, as we develop more and more success and we can share case studies with other regions like the Northwest, the Southwest, the Southeast, the Midwest, then they can develop bioregional networks. And there already are networks that are in existence, but we're just bringing our mycelial symbiosis, so to speak. Then you know, then we can really amplify and scale, you know, systems level change. But it ripples out from you as an individual, you know, and then linking arms with your close circle, and then building you know, organizational partnerships. So I think I just want to, let's see. Yeah, I think I want to just stop right now and invite Amanda and Samarth, if you um, have any reflections. You know, I've just been talking for a while. It is a workshop where here we are. So if you have reflections, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you do, you know, how you're thinking about all the things that I'm saying, and then that's the kind of visioning space that we can go back and forth a little bit, and then, you know, in a few minutes we can really get into action for each of you. And I'd love to leave here, you know, and then those that are listening to the recording, we kind of walk you through thinking through what are some action steps for you. So before we do that, I want to open it up. Yeah, Amanda, Samarth.
Um, hey, I just had a question about your earlier work during your introduction when you talked about inviting leaders to workshops and stuff like that. How do you are they people who volunteer? Do you invite them? Are they is there some form of application?
Yeah, that's a great question. This year we're just building our, like I said, based on the theory of change, building organizational partnerships is my understanding of how you really leverage, you know, build something solid. So this year we're just beginning to reach out into the Berkshires based on the relationships that we've already developed. For Indigenous Peoples Day, we're going to create a core team of organizational sponsors. Um, and we have ideas of who that will be, but I don't want to share the names. If you have ideas of, it's a hybrid of inviting for-profit businesses as well as nonprofits, because that's an important learning place, to go both ways, to have more interaction, um, between for-profit and nonprofits. So the climate leadership year-long training is going to have 12 people in each cohort, in each council. 6 of those will be representatives of businesses, for profit, and 6 from nonprofits. And then, so next year, we're going to pilot the first cohort next spring. So, as I said, slowing down and then doing things right actually allows it to speed up and to scale. So we'll do the first one next year, and then we're also going to train a team of facilitators next year. So the following year, we'll be able to, have 8 to 10 councils, which will be, 100 to 120 business leaders in the community. Before that happens this year, we're going to be just setting up kind of introductory webinars like this, for people to get involved, and then people can buy the book and start to connect in, and then to participate in Indigenous Peoples Day, which has an interactive focus on climate as well, because in some ways I didn't make the explicit connection, but I've learned personally from my teachers, that Indigenous teachers, that the earth comes first, and that's not how the thinking of our modern day world is. So that's where the connection is. So that was a little long-winded, but I let me know
No,
if that
I,
helps.
I, I understand. Have you also considered public officials, not just elected public officials, but people who are hired?
Sure. Yeah. That could be a third. That could be a third aspect to the triangle. Maybe there would be, we're just getting started. So that for-profit, nonprofit aspect, and then, as you're saying it, we could have, 4 for-profits, 4 nonprofits, and then 4 public officials in a certain cohort, or even just 1 or 2. So it's not like a rigid model. It's a iterative process of designing, a space for people to trust each other, so that they can feel good about getting on the phone and saying, hey, I got this idea, like, let's build this initiative.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Samar.
I guess I was just struck by how the self, team, and alliance structure can be applied to many different aspects of life, not just climate activism. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And okay, so you just mentioned that you're just getting started. I'm wondering what you guys are thinking, like what cohorts will work on, or are you going to let cohorts decide what projects they want to work on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I appreciate also the observation of self, team, alliance, right? It's all these principles are based on nature, right? The pebble in the pond, right? That's what it is, the ripple effect. And I also study, the ancient wisdom teachings, and the Tao Te Ching. I don't know if you heard of the Tao Te Ching. It's some people say it's the most it's the number one leadership text in the world. It's 2,500 years old. Lao Tzu wrote it in China. It's real to the point. I read one chapter a day. It's just a few pages. I have my copy right here, but he says start with yourself. You got to start with yourself. If you're doing a good job in your life, just taking care of yourself, body, emotions, mind, spirit. You're taking care of yourself, your surroundings, you make your bed, you put good food in your body, then you're going to be more harmonious within yourself. Then if you're doing that, it's going to have an impact on your family. If your family um, is functioning well, that's going to have an impact on your community. If your community is working well, so on and so forth. That's the natural ripple effect of nature, and that's an old principle. It's not like my idea, is what I'm saying. Um, it's time tested. So thank you for noticing that, and yeah, we can all apply it to our lives. And in terms of the projects that leaders will work on, the 12-month program, the first 3 months, it's like 3, 4, 5. The first 3 months is self-focused. So the project for the first 3 months is me, like where am I at? And, maybe it's about health. Maybe I need to start running, or working out, or maybe I need to, go on a date with my wife, or, whatever it is on the self level. Maybe I need to, manage my files or my emails. So it's the first 3 months. It's like finding the areas where there's places where I can up my game to increase the bandwidth of what I can be responsible for, because that's the whole thing. Is the climate issue, it's extra right now because we're in business as usual mode, just doing what we're doing, but it's becoming increasingly hard to ignore it. And so we need to increase our bandwidth of what we're capable of engaging with, on every level. So it might actually be about slowing down and feeling the emotional impact of what's going on in the world. Uh, so whatever that is for each individual, the first 3 months is really that interior place of how am I going to get prepared myself? That was the whole point. The problem is we're not prepared. So how am I going to get to the next level of being prepared to take this on? Then once I'm more prepared, then I'm able to have 4 months of focus on my team, the business or organization or community group or government office department, like we were saying, wherever my sphere of influence is, how am I going to bring this work to my organization? And when I say this work, it's also a cultural shift, to deepening trust in the organization, because that trust is then about getting more prepared. We need to really, I like to think about it as like we have heart cords connecting us, and sometimes there's slack in those lines. So we got to tighten those lines so that we're kind of like birds in formation. They fly down south. It's not a game. It's real life. If they're flying through a hurricane, it's like, whoa, we got to be tuned in to each other. We're moving quick. So after those 4 months of really tuning up the resonance in a team, and saying, hey, I'm getting ready to do this breakthrough project, and we're going to do it as a whole organization. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm getting ready. And so what do you guys think about climate issues, and how could we be more engaged? And then the last 5 months of the year-long program is the breakthrough project. And so there's all that foundational work that's been done. And, as I'm talking through this, this could be a wonderful thing to pilot at Simon's Rock. I'd be happy to talk with you guys about doing that. Maybe one class wants to take it on and do it for a year. And I think it is important, certainly we could shrink it down to a 3-month focus, but I think there's something very powerful about the cycle of a year, of letting something cook inside of us through the whole seasonal cycle. So anyway, the last 5 months is when you get moving with what is the project. After I've done all this thinking, I've engaged with my team in my organization or my business, then it's like, okay, what do we want to do? What are we going to take it on? And then this process is happening in a 12-person council where everyone else is doing it, and they're all businesses and organizations in the Berkshires. So that's where the alliance building naturally, organically emerges. Is like, hey, we're thinking of doing this. Oh, and you guys are thinking of doing that. For example, maybe it's a grocery store or a restaurant that throws away a lot of food at the end of the day, and they want to have a breakthrough project of not wasting that food, composting and getting that food also to people that would eat it. So that could be a breakthrough project. And then there might be someone else in the group that has a different kind of organization that they could support each other. And then as the network grows, we're going to be building an online forum for people, for the alumni of the network. So someone has an idea and they need support with it, or they need someone who knows how to do a certain thing, then they type that into the forum, and boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of how it is. It's not like, I'm not bringing, or the facilitators are not bringing the projects and say, hey, we need to do this. That being said, we are bringing the leading edge thinking and thought leadership. For example, there's an organization called Project Drawdown. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they wrote a book in about 5 years ago. It was a New York Times bestseller called Drawdown, and it's 100 most successful not projects, but industries or initiatives that like offshore wind turbines, big things, are educating women. That's number 2 in the world, because it shows what happens when you do that. So the 100, agriculture, aquaculture, that are already working, and then they show how much money it saves in the millions and billions of dollars, and then how much carbon dioxide it draws down, that initiative, on a global scale, from 2020 to 2050. So we'll have that as a resource. We want everyone to have that book and say, hey, okay, well, how does that apply to the Berkshires? How does that apply to the Northeast as a whole bioregion? And so that's over the course of that year, people are having a space to do that kind of thinking and research, and have a support. We'll have guest speakers and so on and so forth. But then ultimately, we want people to feel motivated. It's like, this is how, because they're the experts in their own life individually, but also in their organization. What capacity do we have this year? And again, the 5 months for a breakthrough project, it's really just, getting out of the runway. And then we're developing the cohort training to become a self-sufficient council. So those 12 people, in the first year, we have a facilitator, but then after that, they learn the facilitation skills to then be meeting together over the course of the next year, the year after, maybe not as regularly, but they stay connected. And then we have gatherings that emerge through the network, as there's more and more cohorts.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like the alliance is gonna grow pretty fast. Are you worried at all about I guess because the climate crisis is becoming more and more serious in shorter and shorter amount of time. Are you worried at all that that the timeline for the growth of the alliance and the changes that those leaders will make won't match up with the current 2030 timeline?
When you mean when you say the current 2030 timeline, do you mean what needs to happen?
Yeah, yeah.
But in like the leading science.
Mhm.
Well, that's, in a sense, that's like the question of, is there hope, right?
Mhm.
Ultimately, when you boil it down, in a
Mhm.
sense, right? It, you know, the, I don't know. That's how, one way that I hear that question. And you know, what I've been learning, from indigenous people, in my experience in ceremony, is life is a ceremony. And what I mean by that is, when you're in a ceremony, you don't have, you're not able, um, or it's not really relevant to say, you know is it going to work? You just go for it. You can say both feet, 100%. You just dive in, and you put all of your faith and all of your trust in it. And so that's part of the training, um, in our thinking and in our whole body engagement is, and that's where I think the rubber hits the road part. And it's great because now we're at the end of our hour here, and we can focus on action. So, you know, the short answer is, we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it, all out, play all out, leave it all on the court, and whatever we get done, whatever we are able to do, it's going to transform the landscape. And I think that's one piece is, that it's important to say, this is where things are going to be in 2030 if we don't change anything. But what we don't look at as much is a principle, the 1% principle. And it's talked about, I'm thinking about the book Atomic Habits. I don't know if you ever heard of that book. Yeah. Well, yeah. Um, that's really focused on personal habit change. But you can apply that principle to collective change as well. So if we change, on a personal level, we do something, you know, for a whole year, and then I think the math is, if you get better at something by 1% every day for a year, you become 37% better over the course of a year, which is whoa. I mean, right? So, but all I have to do is 1% every day. So that's the thing. Here we are, 2022. We have 8 years to 2030, right? So, but if we do 1% this year, then in 2023, 2030 is actually different. That it already changed. So we just need to keep going, staying positive, and dealing with the grief that comes up too. When atrocities happen and trauma happens, doing the healing work, but creating those cultural structures and systems like this, where there's places for people to do that work of healing, resilience building, and saying, I got to get, all right, I got knocked off, I lost my balance. It's easy to lose our balance in these times, but then I can regain my balance quicker and keep going. And being one of the people that's able to be of service to other people who are off balance. And more like that, we create a vibration that entrains. It's like a sound healing principle. We entrain the chaos vibration towards a vibration of focus and what needs to happen right now. We need to be training ourselves to be the person that others look to in the moment of chaos. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for asking. And let's so we can end on time. I want to offer a action focus practice for both of you and then everyone that's listening to the recording. So the question is, well, there's 3 questions. The first question is, at the end of this conversation, what are you inspired to do? That's a big question, but I'm going to add some specifics. What are you inspired to do this week? So today's Wednesday, by next Wednesday. And an action, I define an action as something that next week you could tell me I did it or I didn't do it. So it's not like an action is not, well, I want to take more a breath before it's like, well, how do I know that you did that? Like, make it really specific and clear. I did it or I didn't do it. And anything that pops into your head maybe it's, I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to, take time to I'm going to call my dad. I haven't talked to him. I want to build that relationship, whatever it is. So awesome. Yeah. Clean your house. That's great to chat. Samarth, do you have one you want to put in the chat?
I just got homework to catch up on, I guess.
Okay, but you're going to do that anyway, aren't you?
I guess so, yeah.
So let's see something like that's a little bit more stretch, a little
And
stretch.
work out every day. I haven't done that in ages.
See, work out?
Yeah, since COVID started, I've had a hard time getting myself to the gym.
Great. So let's every day, that's a big one. Is that real? You think you can do that?
I did it before COVID started, pretty much every day.
Awesome. So what would that mean actually to work out? Like what defines a workout? Like 10 minutes?
No, usually 15 minutes of cardio, then 15 minutes of just calisthenics, and then another 15 minutes of cardio.
Okay, so that's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So you know what that is. You have your set routine. So
yeah.
are you gonna commit to that?
I'll try to.
Well, let's do something that's like you can definitely commit to. Is maybe like do two of those twice this week.
All right, I like that.
All right. And is there a person in your life that you can say, hey, I made this commitment, I want you to be my accountability buddy?
I'll just tell Bill the cat, who's the person who runs the gym at Simon's Rock.
Awesome. Yeah. Tell him I want to come in. I want you to see me coming in twice. And like, I'm going to say, hey, this is number 1. This is number 2 by next Wednesday. So
right.
So if you do your second workout on Wednesday, that still counts next week, I would say, or it's up to you.
All right. Yeah.
All right. 2 workouts. Awesome. Great. So let's think about an action step that is in the next 3 months. Okay. And it doesn't have to just be one action, actually. It could be the difference between an action and a project is a sequence of actions, right? So it could be a project that you're defining in the next 3 months. Okay, but just whatever comes to mind, and you may or may not commit to doing this. Okay, I'm not going to hold you to it, but this is a brainstorm. So in the next 3 months, again, from this conversation, what are you inspired about from this conversation? Maybe it's I'm going to buy Lev's book and I'll start reading it.
I am going to buy Love's book.
Oh my God! Did you just?
Yeah, yeah.
You were writing that?
I think I might also talk to fellow faculty about using the book and creating like a sequence of mods or classes where they can do this work with students.
Yeah, that would be exciting. I would love to support that
Yeah, but
process.
I do have class at 1:05, so I actually have to run, but it was
Okay.
really nice meeting you, Lev.
All right. Well, that's an awesome way to end, and I look forward to following up with you about that, Amanda. We'll have a great
Yeah,
class, and
keep in touch.
absolutely. And I just want to hear from Samarth, and then you can drop off.
I don't know. I do want to read more books.
Great.
Yeah, I did read Atomic Habits. I had a big self-help phase, and then it kind of died out
Cool.
as I got more into work and academic stuff.
Yeah, well, that the climate leadership is, there's as I was saying, it's kind of that hybrid space of self-help, but then within the context of changing our world, supporting that change. So yeah. So is that an action you want to take in the next 3 months? Get that book?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know how to get it? Here, I'll
Yeah.
put the link. I'll put the link here for you. It's on our website.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon. Wait a sec. I'll just put this. It's Alliance for a Viable Future. And then /book. Here, just give this to you. Here's the link to get the book.
Gotcha. I got my laptop right here.
Okay, cool. And then what I like to end with is, what are you feeling inspired about from our conversation today? A word or phrase. Yeah.
I mean, there's always that fear of climate change. There is that inspiration of work happening. I mean, I'm glad to hear about all the work that your foundation is doing. I really like the idea of teaching people. I think so much of our work has been we should do the right thing, but so little of it has been we should tell people how to come up with the right thing and tell people how to, think correctly, how to understand the science, the social science of it. So I really appreciate educating people. That I think is the biggest but the most silent part of it.
Mm.
So I'm really inspired by that.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm inspired by you showing up and engaging, and Amanda as well. And I'm inspired that this is a global conference that's happening, and that Simon's Rock is in my community. And I'm inspired to be more connected to what you guys are doing. You're a wonderful school. I know a lot of graduates of Simon's Rock, so it's wonderful. It's a wonderful school.
Yeah, it is, certainly is.
All right. Well, thank you again, and look forward to connecting down the road.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, thanks a lot for coming and speaking. Yeah, and I guess have a good day.
All right. You too.